So creating any form of work in investment banking takes a lot of iterations because it has to be at a very, very high standard simply because there's a lot of money on the line. So the teaser took a lot of back and forth, but I'd got it to a very, very good standard. And then the key thing is that not only is your team happy, but also the client is happy. So the really good thing was that the clients were super friendly. Like I, as an analyst, would always hold a weekly call to give them updates. So the updates will generally be where we are in the process. So I should maybe go a step back. In an investment banking deal, you normally have, it's not the word, but the feeling out stage. So you got the stage in which you, or information gathering. So as I said earlier, you're gathering information in order to form a healthy consensus and execute the next bits of work. Then you got first round, which is when you sent out the teaser to the first round of prospective buyers. You've got second round. So once these buyers have indicated that they're interested and they've signed that indication, then they're going to the second round and they submit bids, and then you do due diligence, and then there's obviously closing. So the weekly calls were actually good because you as an analyst got to know the client. There was an emotional side because you can tell, especially if they're entrepreneurs or people that have been in the business for like 20 years, you can see that they've put years and years of hard work and they're trying to achieve fair value of the business. Of course, you have certain shareholders who have different views and this is their baby and they're quite greedy. But generally, the clients are quite good, or the clients on this deal were quite good to work with. Once we've decided the buyers, we go through what we call a canvassing process. So as part as an analyst, I created a nice canvassing schedule, and all this was a structure in Excel, which was really clean to show them the participation of the different buyers and how we're approaching them, and then the feedback. So the senior management of the people working on the deal. So what I mean by that, the senior management of people within our investment bank have contacts, right? You know, it's funny, as you go up in investment banking, you're less technical, but you're more relationship. And I notice in most jobs, most things converge to sales. And what I mean by that is you become a salesman ultimately. You've acquired a lot of this technical and soft skill acumen, but when it comes to making the big bucks, you are selling. And so that's quite an interesting fact to consider. But yeah, they leverage their key client contacts, and so does the client itself. And we use this as a form of basis to, canvas potential buyers. And what that simply means is we form the question, hey, we've got this super interesting business. They're fast growing. They've got great profit margins. They've got a really good set of management, and they've got great projections. Would you want to buy this business? And as an investment bank, we go one step further and we look at the way the business is performing. So say if the business is doing really, really good in Europe but want to expand in Asia, and our client is doing phenomenal in Asia, they've had record-breaking sales and they're market leader, we tell them that, hey, this is a great opportunity for you to, vertically integrate and come in and buy an existing leading player rather than building from the ground up. So this process again goes back and forth, and working on this, it took about a couple of weeks working on the canvassing process to make sure that we were in a good stage and we've selected the right buyers when working on the deal. And we sent out these teasers and they indicate they're interested. They sign a non-disclosure agreement or an NDA because we're putting out private information about the company or sensitive information. So they sign an NDA to make sure that this information won't be used. And then we also send the SIM or the confidential investment memorandum. And that's something I did. This is a more in-depth view of the business, so a longer form presentation. This involves building out the projections. This involves looking at the market and really going into detail as to why this business is a good fit. looking at their brand and going more into detail than we did in the teaser. So going back to my teaser analogy, that's literally just to tease and whet the appetite of the different buyers. And then the sim is like, okay, you're interested. This is what the business is, and this is why it's fantastic, and this is why we believe you should acquire the business. This generally takes about 4 to 6 weeks, but again, as an analyst, you're working on a multitude of projects, so the deal is very busy and you might lose a lot of sleep because your client wants to make sure you're getting everything right. But at the same time, you're working on a multitude of projects, whether it's other deals, whether it's pitches. So you have to equally give enough quality to all the deals and make sure you're on top of your game. And yeah, it was a tough time, but a fantastic learning experience. So after round one, we get into round two. And at this point, you've received indications of interest from different businesses. You've narrowed your buyer list, and essentially you've got more serious buyers involved in the deal. My role kind of changes more to, I'd say, like a manager now. I've been like someone who was, I don't know, in terms of football, striker, scoring the goals, making sure that everything was in place. Now I'm overseeing a process. And what do I mean? Round two mainly predicates around due diligence, and breaking that further, you've got financial due diligence, and then you've got like legal and tax due diligence, and then you got operational due diligence. So why due diligence is important? Well, the interesting buyers want to ask questions about the business they're buying, right? So what you do as an investment bank is facilitate these meetings between management, so the people who are selling the business, and the potential buyers, so they can answer any questions regarding the business, which gives them more confidence when they're acquiring this business. But this has to be done in a very structured way. And this is where I, as an analyst, take charge of something called a data room. And so a data room, we collect, to avoid asymmetry, we collect a lot of information related to the business. So going back to my point, we do diligence both on the financial aspect, the legal and tax aspect, and any operational or business, and put them in a data room so that the relevant buyers can read this information and they have a lot of questions. They make sure they know what they're buying. So with financial due diligence, you're looking at the revenue number and you're looking at the quality of their revenue. So breaking that down, you're looking at the customers they have. What is their customer list? Is it what they say they have? Their distribution channels, how they're getting their product out there, their pricing strategies. Maybe from a financial modeling perspective, you're looking at the assumptions you've put in. You said that the business is going to grow 3% a year. Well, how have they done the previous years? What's the likelihood? Are there any competitors that are going to come in? Essentially, you want to stress test the quality and assumptions behind the revenue as a business, because you're buying into that, right? You buy businesses to make further money and you believe that. You want to make sure that they're honest in the numbers they present. Now, when you come to legal and tax, tax is mainly understanding the different accounting policies they use so that there's no hidden cost, there's no, numbers that jump out at you. And then legal is just looking at any patents they have, any potential litigation, any lawsuits they have, That would be a terrible situation if you acquire a business and you've got like, I don't know, a 500 million lawsuit, but because you now own the asset, that falls on you. And so the due diligence is really, really important. And the final thing is like operational and business. So like I said, when you're selling a business, there's normally synergies, and synergies, the analogy is like 1 + 1 is 3. I know mathematically that doesn't make sense, but hold up with me. What that means is that when you combine the two businesses, they're greater than the entities in singular form. So this could mean that, hey, if business A and business B join together, we don't need two R&D departments. We can operate with one. So that means that cost is going down. And if you just think of it from a logical perspective, because profit is revenue less cost, and even if you have the same revenue and you have less cost, a revenue of 10 and say the cost of 5, but now, and that obviously gives you gross profit of 5, but say that you have revenue of 10 and then you have a cost of 3 because you've removed a duplicate department. Now you have a revenue of 7. So that's the kind of information behind synergies. So going back to my experience, most of the time I spent was uploading relevant documents, making sure that answers in the data room were answered. So if a couple of buyers wanted to find out, hey, what happened to this key employer? Or if we buy your business, we see that the contract of maybe the chief financial operations officer who's doing really well is going to run out. What does it mean if we buy your business? Or, you've been paying your employees this bonus structure. If we now come into the business and we remove this bonus structure, what are the contracts or what things do you have in place to make sure these employees stay? These are key questions, right? You're going to own this asset. And if, the company is employees are very, very important to the company, right? And losing out key employees, especially in a transaction, might be bad because they know how to get the best of the business, right? They know how to drive things forward. So a lot of my role was kind of processing these information requests and essentially setting up what you call a management presentation day. And so what that day involves really is, as it suggests, right? I create another presentation. So a lot of iterations going through PowerPoint, a lot of late nights, making sure it's done to a T. I worked on weekends. I think I worked probably 110 hours in 1 week. That was very, very stressful. But again, I learned the most then. And the day involves management coming in and from the client who's selling the business. And then you also have the key representatives from the different prospective buyers. And this is where it's more of a structured way in which they ask certain questions to the owners of the business to make sure they're comfortable with the business they're looking to acquire. So closing off round 2, the final 2 things are drafting the definitive agreement and receiving the final letters of intent. So all this is these are the serious buyers. We've gone through all the due diligence. We're really, really happy. This is the offer we're going to put forward to acquire your business. Are you happy? So that concludes round 2. And then we go into kind of the final stage. This is where bids have been submitted and you want to negotiate, right? If I'm a seller and I'm looking to buy my business and I think it's worth 120 million, but they're offering 110, you have to make sure you negotiate to get the best price. And generally, there's also some crevices in a business. If, say, you want to still remain part of management, you've got to make sure that, you're still secure. So if you're a shareholder in a business with, say, 80% and your shareholding is going to go down to 50%, you have to make sure that this is actually going to happen, that you don't all of a sudden, get bought off and you have no control over, from the new owners. So generally that process takes a bit of back and forth. So even when you've selected the final buyer, you continue to conduct due diligence to make sure that your buyer has full visibility and comfort. One thing that was pretty cool, which I didn't mention, was site visits. So if they have a production plant, for example, you organize for the management of the buyer to go and see the seller. What was really cool is I actually got to go. So after spending months, countless weekends, late nights working on the deal, it was actually good to go and see the facilities of the management. So this was pretty cool because sometimes as an analyst, you can do all this work and actually not get to see or engage with the client. But this was really good because I got to go and see the business, and you have more of a fundamental and understanding of the business, especially when you've looked and spent countless hours, weekends, late nights working and scrutinizing this business and trying to basically provide the best service possible. And then once that is all done, you generally get a board approval. So it has to make sure that the board are happy with this deal. Then you do make sure the financing's all in place, because again, going back to my 100 million example, not everyone has 100 million in the bank. There's different ways in which they can pay this. So you need to understand, do they have the financing, and what will the impact of the financing do to the overall value of the business? And so that's a exercise done between both parties, and the different sorts of financing. Are they going to use stocks? Do they have the cash? Or are they going to raise the debt? Or in more complicated circumstances, are they going to do an asset sale? But the most important thing is, do they have the money? Can they pay for it by the deadline set out? And if both parties are happy, we finally have a deal. So you're at the final stretch. Everything is signed. I've had my sleep, and then finally you have the closing dinner. This is generally one of the most rewarding experiences when working on an M&A deal. A closing dinner, as it suggests, is where the client invites you and all the people that have worked hard on the deal to celebrate the success. And this is fantastic. You generally go to a really, really fancy restaurant. The bill is not yours. The client pays and you celebrate. It's a lot of months of hard work, especially in the instance that you get to know the client personally. You celebrate the wins, you speak to them, you get drunk, you eat good food, you spend a lot of money. And yeah, that marks the end of the deal. It's an interesting process, a fantastic learning curve, and even pondering on it now and thinking about it, I was so mentally drained and exhausted. But that's what you sign up when it comes to investment banking, and that's why after 2 years, 18 months in some cases, people are able to go to quite senior roles at such a junior part in their career. Because if you think of it, investment banking is almost, they say it's a marathon, but you do a lot of sprints. And if you sprint a lot, so if the average person is working 40 hours and you're working 80-hour weeks, your 2 years will be 4 years elsewhere. Do you understand what I mean? And these deal experiences are phenomenal learning experiences, especially when you're dealing with, high, well-known individuals, some of the biggest companies in the world. And what's rewarding is you look at a newspaper and you're like, hey, I worked on that deal, and that was the instance with me. It's a great turning point. It's a great learning opportunity. And yeah, it's fantastic. If you haven't liked the video, stop and make sure you like the video, comment and share. This takes a long time to execute. I'm on holiday. I should be out here, but I've seen on my poll you guys are interested in this stuff. So I'm making sure I've given you a full high quality account. Now, if you want to break in investment banking, on my website, I have a library of really successful cover letters and the likes of Goldman Sachs, Royal Bank of Canada, JP Morgan, Blackstone. I also have a CV library or a CV template, which is another successful CV that gets you in investment banks. If you look at my previous videos, I've talked to you guys on how to write the perfect CV. But if you want a template which is ready-made, you can acquire this CV from my site. And if you want more specific advice on your application, I'm more than happy to answer questions. But I get a ton of questions, as you can imagine. So please book a call via the website and we can discuss a plan of strategy to help you break into investment banking, get these offers, and you can give these experiences like I am. But yeah, guys, thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you want to see more content like this, please like and give 300 likes, guys. Come on, guys. I've sat here. I'm abroad in the US and I've taken my time. I could be out here partying, but I've taken my time out to educate you guys because I know I put a poll on my channel and this is what you wanted to hear. So I hope this was good. I hope you've enjoyed. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. It's the boy, the life is soul, aka the bodybuilding banker, and I'm out. Peace.